He was about 6 feet tall, that he was completely scourged all over his body. He was crucified. And everybody cheered and they went crazy. And then about a half an hour later, black smoke came out. That never in history has that happened. That the white smoke came out and then the black smoke.
Lightning doesn't strike the same person twice. That's what they say. But on the set of The Passion of the Christ, it did. Jim Caviezel was hit while playing Jesus. Then it happened again. Same spot, same man, 60 seconds later. The crew stood frozen, staring at the sky. Some were crying, others started praying, because that was just day one. Before the real injuries, before the mysterious strangers appeared, before the conversions started happening, before Mel Gibson lost everything. What happened during the making of this film can't be explained, and Hollywood has spent 20 years trying to bury it. Late 1990s, Mel Gibson had everything Hollywood could offer – Oscars, blockbusters, the cover of every magazine. But inside his Malibu mansion, he was dying. The alcohol came first, then the rage. His marriage was falling apart. His kids barely knew him. He'd wake up and wonder why he was still breathing. One night, it got bad enough that he didn't want to be. He fell to his knees in the dark, and for the first time in years, he prayed. Not the prayers from childhood, real ones, desperate ones, the kind you make when there's nothing left. He opened a Bible his mother gave him, started reading the Gospels, the Passion, the suffering, and something broke open inside him. Then he found a book, written by a German nun who never left her convent, Anne Catherine Emmerich. She'd had visions of Christ's final hours, detailed, brutal, specific. She described places in Jerusalem she'd never seen. Archaeologists later confirmed she was right. Gibson became obsessed. He read every day, prayed every morning, and slowly an idea formed. He would show the world what really happened, no matter what it cost. Think he could pull it off? Drop a comment with your guess and subscribe so you don't miss what happened next. But when he told Hollywood his plan, they laughed in his face. Gibson walked into every major studio in Hollywood – Warner Brothers, Fox, Paramount, Disney. He pitched them his vision, a film about Christ's final 12 hours, spoken entirely in Aramaic, Hebrew, and Latin. No English, no subtitles in some versions, no movie stars. They looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Who's going to watch a movie they can't understand? It's too violent, too religious, too risky. Mel, this will end your career. One executive told him it would be the biggest flop in history. Another laughed and said, "Good luck finding someone dumb enough to finance it." So Gibson made a decision that would either prove he was a genius or destroy him completely. He'd pay for it himself. $45 million. His own money. He sold properties, liquidated investments, put everything on the line. No studio backing, no safety net. If it failed, he'd lose it all. His agent quit. His friends told him to stop it. Hollywood insiders started taking bets on how badly it would bomb. But Gibson had already found something they didn't know about – a priest who could speak to the dead.
Father William Fulco was a Jesuit priest and scholar. He specialized in ancient languages that hadn't been spoken in 2,000 years. Gibson brought him onto the project to create the dialogue, Aramaic, the language Jesus actually spoke. The actors would learn it phonetically. They wouldn't understand what they were saying. They'd just have to trust the words were right. But Gibson still needed someone to say them, someone to become Jesus. He'd turned down every famous actor in Hollywood. He didn't want a recognizable face. He wanted the audience to see Christ, not a celebrity. Then a friend mentioned Jim Caviezel. Young, relatively unknown, deeply Catholic. Gibson invited him to his house in Malibu. They talked for 3 hours about faith, about suffering, about what it means to carry a cross. Then Gibson gave him a warning. If you take this role, you might never work in Hollywood again. They'll label you. They'll blacklist you. Your career could be over. Caviezel was quiet for a moment. Then he said something Gibson would never forget. We all have a cross to bear. Either we carry it or it crushes us. Gibson knew he'd found his Jesus. Then Caviezel mentioned one more thing. I just turned 33. Gibson stared at him. The age Christ was crucified. And my initials, J.C. Gibson didn't believe in coincidences anymore, and what happened next would prove he was right. They flew to Matera, Italy, a small ancient city in the south. The landscape looked like first-century Jerusalem. Perfect. But from the moment cameras arrived, the weather turned strange. Clear mornings would go black in minutes. Wind would rip through the set without warning. Equipment would fail during certain scenes, then work perfectly after. The crew started noticing patterns. Every time they filmed something about Christ's suffering, the sky darkened. When they filmed moments of grace, light would break through the clouds. Then came the day they shot the Sermon on the Mount. Caviezel climbed the hill in his robes. The air smelled like rain. Clouds were building overhead, but they had the shot lined up. They had to film. The assistant director, Jan Michelini, stood nearby with the crew. Caviezel took his position, raised his arms, opened his mouth to speak. Then the sky exploded. A bolt of lightning came straight down. It hit Caviezel directly. The blast was so bright, the cameras went white. So loud that crew members screamed. Caviezel's hair sparked. Smoke rose from his body. Everyone froze, staring, unable to process what they'd just seen. Then Michelini ran toward him. He had to check if Caviezel was alive. And the second bolt hit. Same place, same man, 60 seconds apart. Both Caviezel and Michelini were thrown to the ground. The shockwave knocked equipment over. The smell of burning ozone filled the air. Someone started crying. Someone else started praying in Italian. Paramedics rushed in. They checked both men. No burns, no visible injuries, just dazed, shaking, clothes singed, hair standing on end. The statistical odds of being struck by lightning, once, 1 in 15,000. Twice in the same place, less than 1 in 9 million. Caviezel looked at Gibson and whispered, I think something doesn't want this film made. But if they thought the lightning was a warning to stop, they were wrong. The real pain hadn't even started. The day came to film the scourging, the Romans whipping Christ nearly to death. Gibson wanted it brutal, authentic. He'd studied the historical records. A Roman flagrum had metal tips designed to tear flesh. 40 lashes would destroy a man's back. They built a protective board behind Caviezel. Makeup applied fake blood and wounds. The actors playing Roman soldiers had prop whips, choreographed strikes, safe, controlled. Except it wasn't. On the first take, one of the whips came in at the wrong angle. The metal tip missed the board completely. It sliced into Caviezel's back, a real hit. The scream you hear in the film? That was real. They stopped, bandaged him. He refused to quit. They went again. The second strike tore a gash 14 inches long across his back. Blood ran down his skin. Not fake, real. The scar is still there today. But Gibson kept the cameras rolling, and Caviezel kept going. Then came the cross. Gibson insisted on using real wood, solid, heavy, over 150 pounds. Caviezel had to carry it, fall with it,
get back up, over and over. During one take, he stumbled. The plan was for a soldier to catch the beam before it hit him, but the timing went wrong. The cross came down full force. It slammed into Caviezel's head and shoulder. The crack echoed across the set. His shoulder dislocated, popped right out of the socket. The pain was blinding. Some of the blood running down his face was from makeup. Some wasn't. Medics rushed in, wanted to stop production, but Caviezel refused. He did the next take with his shoulder out of place. Every step was agony, every breath. Gibson didn't cut the scene. That twisted face, those tears, that animal sound coming from his throat, all real. The doctors fixed his shoulder that night, told him to rest for a week. He was back on set the next morning. But the worst was still coming. The crucifixion and the cold that nearly killed him. Winter hit Matera hard. The crucifixion scenes had to be filmed outside. Caviezel hung from the cross for hours, wearing almost nothing. Rain soaked him. Wind cut through his skin. His body temperature dropped, fast. The medics watched the monitors. Hypothermia, then pneumonia, both lungs. His lips turned blue. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. At one point, his heart rate dropped so low they thought they'd lost him. They got him down, rushed him inside, wrapped him in blankets. He was shivering so hard he couldn't speak. The doctors said stop. His body couldn't take more. But Caviezel whispered through chattering teeth, "Christ didn't come down from the cross. Neither will I." Gibson stood there watching, torn between finishing the film and killing his lead actor. But something else was happening on that set. Something nobody could explain. Crew members started reporting strange things. Men dressed in white, walking between the cameras, giving quiet directions about lighting, about angles. They spoke with authority, calm, like they knew exactly what needed to be done. But when crew members tried to find out who they were, no one had answers. They weren't on the call sheets, not in any records. No one had hired them. A cameraman swore he saw one standing behind Caviezel during a take, a figure in white, glowing slightly. He adjusted his focus, looked again. Gone. When they reviewed the footage later, frame by frame, the figure wasn't there, not in a single shot. Security cameras around the set were checked. Nothing. These men appeared, helped, then vanished. And people started changing. Luca Leonello played Judas. He was an atheist, openly mocked religion, but during filming, something broke in him. He watched Caviezel suffer on that cross, and he couldn't look away from his eyes.
Leonello said later he didn't see an actor. He saw something else, a depth that wasn't human, like Christ was looking at him, forgiving him. 2 weeks after filming wrapped, Leonello converted. He was baptized, his whole family. He wrote a book about it, From Barabbas to Jesus. Pietro Cerubi played Barabbas, the criminal set free while Jesus died. One brief scene, just a look between them. But Cerubi said that look changed everything. He became a Christian, started speaking at churches, giving his testimony. Even Maya Morgenstern, the actress playing Mary, had a secret. She was Jewish and pregnant. Nobody knew. She carried new life while playing the mother watching her son die. She said later, it felt sacred, planned somehow. But Rosalinda Celentano, who played Satan, had the opposite experience. They shaved her eyebrows, made her androgynous, unsettling. She carried a deformed baby in one scene. The crew hated filming it, said the air felt heavy, wrong. Celentano said she felt a darkness around her for weeks. After filming ended, she quit acting, took up painting, needed to cleanse herself from whatever she'd touched. When production finally wrapped, Gibson had spent $45 million. Hollywood was placing bets on how badly it would tank. No distributor wanted it, so Gibson spent another $15 million of his own money. He screened it in churches, parish halls, let word spread organically. February 25th, 2004, Ash Wednesday, The Passion of the Christ premiered. And what happened next shocked everyone. The lines didn't just wrap around buildings, they looked like pilgrimages. People showed up with rosaries, entire churches arrived in buses. The theaters went silent during the film. No popcorn, no whispers, just tears. In Kansas, a 56-year-old woman had a heart attack during the crucifixion scene. She died in her seat, opening day. Others fainted, walked out shaking, went straight to confession. Pastors stood in lobbies afterwards because people needed to pray right there, couldn't wait. The box office numbers came in. $67 million opening weekend. A film in dead languages with no stars. It became a phenomenon. Churches bought out entire theaters. Schools organized trips. It played for months. By the time it finished, $610 million worldwide. The highest-grossing R-rated film in history. The highest-grossing non-English film ever made. Gibson had bet everything and won. He'd made over $300 million personally. But Hollywood didn't celebrate. They attacked. The New York Times ran hit pieces. Frank Rich wrote 7 articles against it before it even premiered, called it dangerous, anti-Semitic, torture porn. The Anti-Defamation League launched a campaign, accused Gibson of reviving ancient hatred. Critics called him a fanatic, a zealot, said he was glorifying violence, promoting bigotry. Gibson defended himself, said he wasn't blaming anyone. He was showing what sin cost, what love required. But the damage was done. Then, 2 years later, 2006, Gibson got pulled over in Malibu, drunk. And he said things, anti-Semitic things, hateful things. The police report went public. His face was everywhere. Handcuffed, broken. Hollywood had the proof they needed. He was done. CAA dropped him as a client. Studios pulled his projects. Directors refused to work with him. For years, he disappeared, battled depression, addiction, wondered if making the film had cursed him. And Caviezel? His career died too. The man who played Jesus couldn't get a single role. Hollywood had made sure of it.
After The Passion, Caviezel's phone stopped ringing. Scripts dried up. His agent told him the truth. They think you're too associated with Jesus. Nobody wants to hire you. He'd been warned. He'd known the cost. But knowing and living it are different things. For years, he survived on small roles, TV guest spots, low-budget films. While other actors from his generation became stars, he faded. But he didn't complain. He adopted 3 disabled children from China, raised them quietly, gave talks at churches about faith and sacrifice. Then, in 2011, he got a call. A TV series, Person of Interest. It ran 5 seasons, gave him stability. But Hollywood still kept him at arm's length. Until 2023. Sound of Freedom, an independent film about child trafficking. Every major studio passed, just like The Passion, so it was made outside the system, released through grassroots support. Christian communities rallied. It made $250 million. Caviezel was back, against all odds, again. And Gibson? He'd been climbing out of his own darkness. In 2016, he directed Hacksaw Ridge, another film about faith and war. It earned Oscar nominations. Hollywood had to acknowledge him again. But he'd never forgotten his promise. The story wasn't finished. The Passion showed the suffering, but it ended at the tomb. What happened next, between death and dawn?
when Christ descended into hell and shattered its gates. Gibson had been writing for years with his brother, Donald, and Randall Wallace, who wrote Braveheart. The script grew to over 400 pages, too big for one film. So he made a decision. 2 parts. Part 1 releases March 26, 2027, Good Friday. Part 2 releases 40 days later, May 6th, Ascension Thursday. Exactly 40 days, the time Christ remained on earth after rising. The resurrection of Christ. New cast, new vision, but the same obsession with truth. Gibson says it'll be 5 times bigger than the Passion. It'll show the harrowing of hell, the moment Jesus conquered death itself, the cosmic battle between light and darkness. And that footage from frame 4447 that the editors saw, the thing behind Caviezel that wasn't there during filming? Gibson still hasn't explained what it was. He's saving that for the resurrection.